Yoimiya as a fireworks expert showcases a lot about her character, her single target DPS, and explosive burst, and most importantly, her fun personality. Today we're going to be discussing on whether you should pull on Yoimiya or not. Alright, let's do this. Hey yo, what is going on guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today, as you can see, we have ourselves our lovely Nagadahara family member upon us. She's going to be exploring this video with her lovely personality, and yeah, as you can see, we're going to be showcasing what Yoimiya can do today. Alright, let's do this. By the way, look at this beautiful lighting just now. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so here is my Yoimiya stats. So I'll explain everything like stats, the weapons, the artifacts, all into this video. But first off, let's start off with what she does first in the talent section. So as you can see, you may notice a pretty huge high level for my talent levels. So here we go. Let's start with her normal attacks because this is mostly where her damage comes from. Yoimiya, in summary, is a normal attack damage dealer. It's as straightforward as it is. You just want to keep spamming her 5-hit combo with her normal attacks only. You will rarely ever use her charge attacks, and her other abilities, it's either included or supporting Yoimiya's normal attack DPS. So here are the damage multipliers. As you can see, it is very nice. It's pretty high, but it can go even higher when we move on to her own elemental skill. Her elemental skill is quite straightforward. When she uses her elemental skill, it'll infuse all of her physical normal attack damage to pyro damage. And not only that, it'll boost based on an additive damage multiplier by enhancing normal attack damage. So this will just not only infuse pyro damage, it'll also increases Yoimiya's pyro normal attack damage, which is very good and mostly very, very important for Yoimiya's personal damage. And then, yeah, that's pretty simple. And for Yoimiya's elemental burst, what a lovely elemental burst animation. However, it is not as powerful compared to both of her elemental skill and her normal attacks, but it does still contribute to part of her kit. So basically what it does in short is Yoimiya will launch up in the air, shooting fireworks down upon her enemies, doing AoE pyro damage, and then she'll trigger this effect called the Aura's Blaze, which will do more AoE pyro damage every 2 seconds on your enemy. And when you also do any form of damage, that includes normal charge plunging, elemental skill, elemental burst damage, they'll also trigger AoE pyro damage. Once the enemy dies with the Aura Blaze along the way, and it's still up in terms of the duration, then it'll transfer to the closer enemy near the previous enemy that had the Aura Blaze. Alright, and that's it. Here are the skill damage multipliers. As you can see, it's not the most in terms of damage, but you still can take advantage of the pyro application. Alright, so that's her rundown for her base kit. Let's go into her passives. So as you can see here, the first essential passive, during Niwabi's Fire Dance, which is her elemental skill, as soon as Yoimiya shoots her normal attack, after triggering her elemental skill, she'll gain pyro damage bonus by 2% on each hit. And you can get up to 10 stacks. So that means you can get up to 20% pyro damage each time you trigger Yoimiya's normal attack while using her elemental skill, which is extremely important. This will increase Yoimiya's personal damage. So this is really important and the reason why you want to be spending a lot of field time with Yoimiya. Alright, and for her second Ascension passive, or A4 passive, using the Ryukin Sakifrage, which is the elemental burst, causes nearby party members, not including Yoimiya, to gain a 10% attack increase for 15 seconds. Additionally, a further attack bonus will be added on the base on the number of Tricks of Troublemaker stacks Yoimiya possesses when using the Ryukin Sakifrage, and each stack increases this attack bonus by 1%. So basically, this is a utility passive for Yoimiya. When she triggers it, she'll give a base of 10% attack to your teammates, and based on how much stacks that she had from her first Ascension passive, so let's just say you have at max 10 stacks, then you'll give another 10% extra bonus attack to your teammates, which is, yeah, it's a nice little utility passive, and which is the reason why as soon as you're done with Yoimiya's full rotation, which at most you want to try to get up to 10 hits, then at least you'll transfer that elemental burst buff to your teammates. So that is the role that the elemental burst does serve. Alright, and then here's the exploration passive, which is, 100% chance to refund a portion of the materials using to craft an ornament or landscape type furnishing for Serenity Pot, which honestly, does anyone actually do that? Alright, anyways, cool. That is Yoimiya's kit. Let's go and move on to her constellation. Alright, so let's get into it. Just briefly discuss everything that we have here. So, here he goes. Here's C1, the Agete Rukin. The Aura's Blaze created by the Rukin Sakifrage lasts for an extra 4 seconds. Additionally, when an opponent affected by an Aura Blaze is defeated within its duration, Yoimiya's attack is increased by 20% for 20 seconds. So, basically, after using her elemental burst, right? Additionally, when an opponent affected by an Aura Blaze is defeated, and Yoimiya gains and also another attack for 20%, which is nice and all. But depending on how you do rotations for Yoimiya, then sometimes this could feel a bit like, oh, this is not that smooth in terms of rotation, because then you want to do burst, then you want to do skill. It also depends on what artifact set you are going to be building for Yoimiya specifically, so do keep that in mind if you are trying to aim for this constellation. But other than that, it is still, regardless, a personal DPS improvement for Yoimiya. And also, I forgot to mention that her burst does last extra 4 seconds, so more of a chance to trigger some stacks, and better chance of getting the attack percent buff. Alright, so on to C2. When Yoimiya's power damage scores a crit hit, Yoimiya will gain 25% power damage bonus for 6 seconds. This effect can be triggered even when Yoimiya is not the active character. Well, then there you go. So Yoimiya will just gain an extra 25% power damage bonus, which is always nice to have, even when Yoimiya is not on field. So that's always great to have, which is great. This is a great constellation. C3 is 3 levels up to your elemental skill. That's nice for extra damage multiplier buff, right? C4, when Yoimiya's own aura blaze triggers an explosion, Niwabi Fire's dance cooldown is decreased by 1.2 seconds. So this is basically when Yoimiya uses her elemental burst, and after it triggers an explosion, like what it says, her elemental skill cooldown will be decreased by 1.2 seconds. I don't think it says that it'll keep decreasing. It just says only 1.2 seconds. So it's an alright constellation. But if there's a way where you can just keep on decreasing by more and more seconds based on how many times it explodes, then honestly, this is a solid constellation too. But from what I'm reading just now, unless it's like a miswording thing, then it seems like an alright constellation. So C5 is 3 levels up to her elemental burst, which is alright. C6, this is where we have something very interesting to talk about here. So during her Niwabi Fire Dance, which is her elemental skill, Yoimiya's normal attacks have a 50% chance of firing an extra blazing arrow that deals 60% of its original damage. This damage is considered normal attack damage. So this constellation may sound like a huge DPS increase for Yoimiya. However, since there is RNG involved when it comes to firing off this extra blazing arrow, this will screw up her normal attack pattern. In other words, when doing reactions like Vaporize, she has what is called standard ICD, and for those that doesn't know what that is, it's basically how often Yoimiya can apply/reapply elements and do reactions. As you can see from this image here, if you were to vape with Yoimiya, as long as she isn't getting interrupted, you will always then vape with her first normal attack, then third, and fifth. But when it's interrupted, it'll be more inconsistent. Reason this is important to know is completing her normal attack pattern to her final hit is her highest damage multiplier. When interrupting this pattern, you will lose out on her highest reaction damage. But for mono pyro/hypercarry Yoimiya, and this will definitely be a DPS increase. For those who are interested in getting C6, this mainly concerns to those who use her in reaction teams, which I personally don't recommend to pull for unless otherwise. This constellation is definitely strong, but with some drawbacks. So my overall thoughts on constellations is it worth to pull for constellation? Personally, not at all. Like, none of these constellations to me seems to be that appealing for Yoimiya. She is already functionally good at C0 and can pretty much do everything that she wants her to do, that you want her to do as a character. Alright, so let's move on to, I guess, weapons and artifacts. So weapons, she has a ton of options. So bows, she's actually quite a free-to-play character for this. As of recently, a 3-star weapon has appeared for Yoimiya's artillery, where you can use this on her. Basically, the reason why it's good, has crit rate substat, and the passive as well is quite easy to, trigger for Yoimiya. I guess the only thing is you do need to be within a certain distance to your opponent. You can't be too farther away, otherwise you will lose out on this passive. And another downside for this weapon is it is a 3-star weapon, so overall lower stats for Yoimiya, because Yoimiya does need the general offensive stats, which is like attack and crit, and the lower the attack is, the lower the character will do overall damage. So it is a free-to-play option that you could use, and for those that are beginners for Yoimiya, this is another option. Alright, so moving on to the 4-star weapons, she does have a lot of options, like the Inazuma craftable bow. However, if you're going to be using the artifact set for Pishimanaw's, then you will be having some trouble trying to fully proc Hamiyami's bow's passive, which then for this case, it will not be recommended to use this bow. But then again, this is for a free-to-play option if you want to have higher access to a little bit more of her base damage. For other 4-star weapons here, there really isn't too much for 4-star weapon options besides one, which in my opinion, this is not even close when it comes to other 4-star weapon options. Rust, in my opinion, is definitely her best in slot for a 4-star. It increases her normal attack damage, which is unconditional. Only thing is it does decrease her charge attack, but like what I said at the very beginning of this video, she doesn't really use her charge attacks as often. So this is a very good weapon. If you do have this on Yoimiya, this will be a great weapon to equip on. And you know, like all weapons, the higher the refinement is, the stronger it'll be. And it also competes against, at R5, with an R1 of Thundering Pulse, which is her single target weapon. So that's very interesting. If you guys do, in case, have this weapon in your account, I would definitely use this on Yoimiya. As for 5-star weapons, she could pretty much use any other 5-star weapons as long as it, you know, gives the offensive stats. So like, I used to use Skyward Heart before I obtained her Thundering Pulse, which, you know, it has crit rate, always useful to have. Does have crit damage as well. Just a little bit of physical AoE damage, which honestly, you won't really see it that much, but you can pretty much use anything as long as it just provides the offensive stats that she needs. I also used to use Almost Bow, but personally, I don't really like using Almost Bow on anybody else besides Ganyu because of, you know, the passive is not really that helpful, but, you know, ton of attack, which is always nice to have. If you do have the other new gacha exclusive 5-star weapons, all of them are pretty good. The Aqua Simulacra is pretty nice on her. You know, the stats is ridiculous. It just carries. It'll make her builds look really, really nice to look at. Pretty much the general idea is as long as you have like anything that has attack or crit, then this will be a great weapon option to use on Yoimiya. And then for obviously Thundering Pulse, this is going to be her obviously her best in slot. It's just a great, perfect synergetic weapon for her to use. That's all I can say really. It's a really great weapon for her. Is it personally worth the pull for? If you really, really care about maxing Yoimiya's full potential, then I guess so, yeah, sure. But if you have Rust at R5, then already this is, in my opinion, already good enough damage. Or if you're struggling to get more crit damage, then I guess you could go for Thundering Pulse. Alright, so now moving on to artifacts, where as you can see here, we're going to be talking about different types of sets and also subsets that she will be using. So let's start off with probably one of the most commonly used for Yoimiya. It is the 4-piece Shimenaos, which will be unlockable once you reach to Inazuma. And basically what it does is, as you can see here, 2-piece set, gives her extra attack percent. The 4-piece set, basically, whenever you cast your elemental skill, whenever the character has more than 15 energy, they will lose that 15 energy. But in exchange for that, you get normal charge plunging attack damage is increased by 50% for 10 seconds. This effect will not trigger again during that duration. So, it's a massive buff, but in exchange, you do have to lose out energy in your burst, so that means you do need to have good energy recharge for her 4-piece passive uptime. So yeah, that's the set overall, which as you can see, there is a major condition for it to get the massive buff from this. Arguably, this is her best in slot, but I would say this is more of a best in slot for her own personal DPS increase. This is more if you want to make her more selfish in DPS, less uptime with her elemental burst, which means less overall team DPS, but more onto Yoimiya DPS. This is the set that I would probably say is a go-to. Whoever has Yoimiya would probably end up playing her mostly on field and, you know, focusing pretty much everything all on her own damage. So that's for the 4-piece Shimenaos. There are other options too, like the 4-piece Crimson, which is her probably overall most consistent set because, you know, she gains the power damage bonus. Also, she has extra reaction damage. She doesn't really care about overload, burning, and burgeon, but for Vaporize and Melt, she can take advantage of this. So that's very cool as well. This set is, I would say, is a very, very good set to use whenever you are focusing on Yoimiya's pure reaction damage. But if you are just going for Yoimiya's own personal damage, then I would say the 4-piece Shimenaos, but for 4-piece Crimson, this is probably the more balanced set because you don't have to worry about the whole energy management. All you have to do really is just play her normally. When you get a burst, you can use the burst normally as well. You can just pull off some decent numbers whenever you're doing pure reaction damage. And for other sets as well, there are other sets, but I just personally wouldn't really recommend using. Like I heard Retracing Bolai, because when your character is shielded, you will gain a 40% normal and charge attack damage, which is situational and it's not really her strongest set either. There's also Echoes of an Offering, which this set I wouldn't personally farm for either because this set is more onto how fast your ping is because of how the passive works. Basically how it works is, you know, it's an RNG set where you have a certain chance of triggering the extra normal attack buff if you get lucky. Basically each chance you miss out the passive, the chance will increase, obviously up to max, then you'll receive that buff eventually. This isn't her best set, but this also is an option. If for some reason you have this but not like the 4-piece Shimenaos set, then I guess you could use this as an option, but this is probably the last resort I would go for because this set is purely based on how fast your ping is, which is really not that great, unfortunately, because this relies on RNG and having good internet. So this is why I wouldn't really recommend this set, but it is an option though. And Gilded Dreams, this is more for like the generic, like I guess if you don't have 4-piece Crimson set, or if you have it on somebody else, you could also use this just for the extra attack percent buff, elemental mastery buff as well. And you know, that's always very helpful for Yoimiya whenever you are going to be using her in reaction teams. For the 2-piece set, I would probably just go for like 2-piece of Crimson, right, just for that power damage. or 2-piece EM. I would go with 2-piece attack. Pretty much anything that gives her, buffs her offensively, which will be mostly important. So I would just probably go for 2-piece attack percent and 2-piece crimson, which is, you know, buffs power damage. So overall, this will be more of the go-to universal set for 2-piece builds. Alright, so for her stats, she's going to be mainly using the universal offensive stats, which are both crit rate and crit damage, and also attack percent. Try to get as much as you can onto your substats. And moving on to the main stats for the Sands, Goblet, and Circlet, it's also the same thing as pretty much what you would universally use for any DPS. Attack main stat for Sands, power damage bonus for the Goblet, and crit Circlet, whichever you need crit rate or crit damage for the Circlet. There is an argument where, oh, do you use Elemental Mastery on the Sands? Personally, I wouldn't recommend it because sometimes you would have a situation where you're going to use Yoimiya without reaction team comps, but if you're always using Yoimiya on reaction team comp base and you have an outside source of buffing Yoimiya, like Bennett, for example, then Elemental Mastery is another option that you could use as well. As long as they have good substats and you don't just end up forcing just because of the Elemental Mastery main stat, but with terrible substats. So those are the stats that I would recommend personally. I guess this applies to all the rules for all elemental damage bonuses. If you don't have the character certain elemental damage bonus, you could just go for whatever stats that they scale from. So like what I've been saying for Yoimiya, she needs offensive stats, so attack percent is fine. And Circlet, I guess same thing. If you don't have crit, then you can also use attack too. But personally, I would just go for crit because Yoimiya's damage multipliers are quite decently high, and it gets even higher with crit. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, very quite simple. For energy, she doesn't really need that much because you don't have to worry about using her elemental burst consistently in every single rotation. Just pretty much, it's one of those situations where if you get it, then you can use it. But if you don't get it in the next rotation, that is really not the biggest deal in the world. And those are her artifact sets. Now let us move on to her teams. Alright, so here are the team comps. So she has like a bunch of team comps that she could use, but mainly I would say probably my two favorite team playstyles is either Hyper Carry Yoimiya or Vaporize Yoimiya. So I'm gonna start with the Hyper Carry one first, just because you know, there's many options that you could use for Yoimiya here. For the flex, you're gonna have someone that can boost or buff Yoimiya in some way, and I would personally recommend if you have the character Yunjin, just because she just buffs normal attack damage, and you know, she'll be a decent option that you could use for Yoimiya. And if there's nobody else that you have, then you could also use like an animal unit that can just buff her power damage bonus, carrying the 4-piece Verdescent set and decreasing and swirling power resistance as well. That's also very good. Bennett is probably the one character that you would definitely want to have on Yoimiya's team. He is going to be an attack buffer for Yoimiya, which is obviously going to be a huge boost to Yoimiya's personal damage. Also, he has access to power resonance, which is, you know, again, more attack percent, so that's very, very good. And also heals, so this will be, you know, he just has everything in his kit, which is what makes him such a great partner alongside with Yoimiya, and will be pretty much great for any team that Yoimiya will be in. Most of the times, you will be having Bennett in Yoimiya team comps, so that's really, really nice. And then for your flex, I would probably fit in here a defensive unit. So a shielder will be great, for example, because the reason is you're going to be spending a lot of field time with Yoimiya shooting her normal attacks. But then, you know, Yoimiya unfortunately has no resistance to interruption, so she will be easily interrupted whenever you are trying to attack with her, which can be quite annoying. So if you have some sort of way to defend Yoimiya, like a shield, for example, then, you know, then she will have no issue getting interrupted and fully able to use her full attack combo. Then that is going to be a significant difference. There's a bunch of shielder options. Obviously, I would just say the best of the best is going to be Zhongli. Decreases universal resistance and has the best shield in the game. Just super simple as well. And if you don't have that, there's also a lot of other options, like, you know, there's Layla, right? There's Diona, there's, well, somewhere around here. Yeah, Diona, Layla, there is Yanfei at Constellation 4, there's even, I guess, Baisu. Nah, I'm kidding, don't use Baisu. Pretty much, as long as you're able to protect Yoimiya while being interrupted is the whole idea. And that is your pretty much hyper carry team, but this is probably the, I guess, for the exact team comp, this is the one I would personally go for. It has Geo Resonance, Power Resonance. We got Bennett here, Yunjin, and Zhongli, which is overall a very, very solid comp. For main reasons to use this Hyper Bloom team, I will only use this if you're going against like Yoimiya's best advantage for her boss, because like what I've been saying before, she is a single target DPS machine gun. So if you use this for like any stages that requires more AoE, then this team will feel a lot lackluster. But if you do put this up against a single target boss, then you will see a massive difference compared to numerous amount of enemies in a stage. Alright, let's move on to Yoimiya's Vaporized Team Comp. So again, a lot more options. Actually, I would say there's a lot more options that you could use here compared to Yoimiya's Hyper Carry team. As long as you have the 3 main roles that you want on her team, which is going to be a Hydro unit, obviously, because that's how she will be doing reaction damage. As of right now, Hydro is just the most consistent for power reaction compared to Cryo, so that's why I don't know why I clicked Chungin. I think he's the only thing I have on this account. But yeah, that's why you want to be using a Hydro character to do some reaction for Yoimiya, which as of right now, Xingqiu is just the go-to for that. He is currently the best off-fielder Hydro applier, and he's just so good. Does so much damage, offers damage reduction as well. Always great unit to have, and if you have him, just put him with Yoimiya, and he's going to be very, very nice to use. And for the next flex, I would just say, like, use it. Again, same thing. This is going to be pretty much on 99% of team comps that I would recommend for you guys to use on Yoimiya, which is, again, a shielder. It's just super important to have a shielder for Yoimiya because of how extremely vulnerable she is on field. So, again, same thing I said with the previous team comp. Use any shielder that you have on your account, as long as they're able to, you know, have decent uptime for Yoimiya's on-field time, then that's gonna be a decent flex for Yoimiya's team comp. And then for here, it's just a flex. Like, you can pretty much use anything. Like, you can go, like, again, Animal. You can go, you know, like Sucrose, Kazuha. You can do Yunjin to buff normal attack damage if you have good energy uptime. You can even do Bennett if you really want. That's what I used to use, actually. And if you have her, you can also use Yelan, which I really, really like using. You know, Yelan and Xingqiu is just a monster duel, and it's just perfect synergy and so much Hydro damage and so much Hydro application. And Yoimiya will just do some crazy Vaporize reaction as well because of Yelan's passive. If you do have her, then that's just a perfect team comp that you have. So, alright, so we're going to be showcasing both teams in Spiral Abyss. Let's do this. So this upcoming stage is honestly, like, not great for Yoimiya. I'll be honest, like, this Spiral Abyss is not that great because there's just a numerous amount of enemies that's just not going to make Yoimiya's showcase look that great. But, you know, regardless, we got to make the video here. So, as you can see here, this is what the Hyper Carry Yoimiya's team is capable of. But, yeah, as you can see, decent damage. Like, very nice. Rotate again. Do whatever, right? Reapply. And there you go. That's simple. Alright, so now for the Vaporize team. Here he goes. This one is kind of easier to play a little. Just go like, you know, just spam all your abilities and just go crazy with Yoimiya. Like, Yoimiya's personal damage, you will see like, oh, it's not that much, but as you can see here, we're killing a lot more enemies quickly this way. Fly. Power buff. That was terrible, but you know what? We move. And here we go. To be fairly honest, this team is kind of low-key carried by Yelan and Xingqiu, but it can get the job done, so. Even against a Hydro resistant enemy, we're still like shredding some damage here. Which is actually a lot faster than I thought it would be. There we go. Oh, let's go here. Little wonky rotation just now. Here we're gonna reapply Zhongli's thing again, so we have a new shield. Here we go here and go crazy. Okay, unfortunately the Dendro guy went in our way, but nice POV. Let's go here. Here we go. As you can see, Battery Yelan is just endless damage. Nice. As you guys can see, Yoimiya can dish out a lot of damage, whether it's the Hyper Carry team or the Vaporize team. Yoimiya will be able to kill off her enemies in a great fashion way. And Yoimiya is just powerful in general. So I'm actually going to do something a little bit different and add a new section to this video where we're going to talk about the pros and cons for the characters. So I guess we're going to just do a list right here real quick. So for my pros personally, obviously it's going to be her single target damage. It is very powerful and is nothing to ignore. It's a pretty good amount of damage that she can deal. Another pro is probably she's Pyro, so she has access to Power Resonance, so buffing her attack percent is a lot easier. There's a lot more accessibility with her to buff attack percent overall. Her teams are actually pretty good as well. One of her strongest teams is a lot more flexible to play than a lot of other characters' team compositions. She's a ranged DPS, which is very convenient to play because of auto-aiming, so that just also makes it convenient for mobile players too, which is a very, very nice upside. Great for exploration as well, because again, she is a ranged DPS, and also she has a very, very fun personality. come on, like, this is very, very hard to hate her, bro. And for the cons, I guess there's a lot more to go through here. I would say that Yoimiya's weapon are not that free-to-play accessible, because you kind of do want rust in order to have a decent amount of damage coming out of it, but she does have some other options, so it's not as bad. But I would say this is a little bit of a cons for now. Another con is, well, her biggest strength is single target, but then that will come out. Her weakness is she does lack AoE. Her only source of AoE damage is her elemental burst, which you won't be able to have most of the times in every single rotation. Yoimiya can have a trickier playstyle when it comes to 4-piece Shimenawas. For newer players, this will be a lot harder to manage her energy recharge, so you do have to play her in a specific way by having a decent amount of energy recharge when it comes to 4-piece Shimenawas and making sure you get full advantage out of that. And I guess for her niche thing, for her hyper carry team, you kind of do want specific characters, unfortunately, to get the best value out of that team, which is going to be Yunjin and Bennett. If you have it as well as Zhongli, it'll really make a massive difference compared to like the other character options that you do have. And I guess other than that, those are my pros and cons. As you can see, she actually has a lot more pros than I expected. At least from the top of my head, that's what I could list. Maybe I'm just being biased, but personally, I really like her. She's very convenient to use, also dish out a decent amount of damage, and whenever there's Spiral Abyss where she shines, she will excel in that abyss, so there's always that. And I guess that wraps about everything. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel for more of this type of content, and stay tuned for the next video, which will be the Yoimiya post guide. And yeah, that's gonna be a very fun video. And other than that, that is all I got. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay epic and peace out.